So just like that, Trump leaves the G7 summit early. Officially, it's because of the situation in the Middle East. But let's be honest, a lot of us aren't buying that. Caroline Levitt can spin it however she wants. But for many Canadians watching this, good riddance. Because the truth is, his presence at the summit was only making things worse. Let's break down what actually happened and why his early exit might be the best thing to come out of this meeting. Before we jump in, today's background shots are all from Prince Edward Island. I've never been, but the more I dig into it, the more it's calling my name. I grew up on the water, but I've only ever fished the Pacific. One day, I'd love to try my luck in the Atlantic. If you're from PEI, drop a comment. Let us know what it's really like. All right, let's get into the first video.
Welcome to Canada.
Thank you.
It's a great honor. Happy birthday. A few days short.
A little bit.
A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. Happy birthday to the U.S. military as well, 250th, and this is the 50th birthday, if you will, of the G7. This marks the 50th birthday of the G7, and the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership, leadership of the United States, many issues. Geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership. I'm very much looking forward to the meeting. I'm grateful to have you.
Thank you very much, Mark.
All right, Mark, you're being way too polite. I get the need for diplomacy, but it's a bit cringe. Watching Canada's leader tiptoe around Trump's ego, that doesn't sit right. Still, credit where it's due. Mark has more patience with Donald than I'll ever have.
But we have a very talented group of people, and you do too, and I know they work together very well. I look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in, and I would say that that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in, and you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago, but it didn't work out that way. But it used to be the G8. And now it's, I guess, what's that, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table. So it makes life more complicated. But you wouldn't have had the war.
All right, President Taco, let's clear something up. When Russia got kicked out of the G8, the Prime Minister of Canada wasn't Trudeau. It was Stephen Harper. So maybe fact check before you start another rage rant. But here's what I don't get. Why does Trudeau still live rent-free in your head? You hate him with this weird obsession, even blaming him for things that happened before he was even in office. Is it really about politics? Or are you still salty that Melania smiled at him in a way she never did for you? Anyway, this just proves, once again, Donald will say whatever the hell he wants, even when it's flat out wrong. And the scariest part? Over 70 million Republicans will eat it up like it's gospel. There were plenty of valid reasons to kick Russia out of the G8. And honestly, a basic ChatGPT search will give you all of them. Annexing Crimea, destabilizing Ukraine, violating international law. Pretty solid grounds if you ask me. What I don't get is this. Why does Trump only go after Obama and Trudeau? Why not mention the other G7 leaders who made the same decision? It's like he's got selective outrage, and somehow it always circles back to his personal grudges.
What is holding up a deal with Canada from your perspective?
It's not so much holding up. I think we have different concepts. I have a tariff concept, and Mark has a different concept, which is something that some people like. But we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it today. I'm a tariff person. I've always been a tariff. It's simple, it's easy, it's precise, and it just goes very quickly. And I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good. So we're going to look at both, and we're going to see what we're going to come out with something, hopefully.
You mentioned Putin. Do you think that he should have a seat at the G7 today, that it should be the G8?
I'm not saying he should at this point, because too much water's gone over the dam, maybe. But it was a big mistake. Obama didn't want him, and the head of your country, the proud head of your country, didn't want him. This was a big mistake. You wouldn't have that war. You know, you have your enemy at the table. Even I don't even consider him. He wasn't really an enemy at that time. There was no concept. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But likewise, if he were a member of what was called the G8 at that time, it was always the G8. You wouldn't have a war right now.
Why not?
What Israel support and what intelligence support are you providing Israel?
We've always supported Israel. We have for a long period of time, strongly. And Israel's doing very well right now.
Why not have
What
China
do
at
you
the
make of
G8?
Canada's
Why not have
defense
China here, the
spending?
biggest economy in the world after the United States?
Well, it's not a bad idea. I don't mind that. If somebody wants to suggest China coming in, I think we suggest. But you want to have people that you can talk to. You know, they don't talk. Putin speaks to me. He doesn't speak to anybody else. He doesn't want to talk because he was very insulted when he got thrown out of the G8, as I would be, as you would be, as anybody would be. He was very insulted, and I mean, he was thrown out by Trudeau, who convinced one or two people, along with Obama. He was thrown out.
Why is no one fact-checking this guy? Russia got kicked out of the G8 when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister of Canada. Not Trudeau. We all know that. Mark Carney knows that. The media definitely knows that. And yet, silence. They just let Mr. Taco keep running his mouth, spewing lies on a global stage like it's no big deal. This kind of silence? It's not harmless. It's enabling.
I don't know what you're saying.
You did a post last night where you said you want ICE to really target Democrats.
Yeah, I want them to focus on the cities because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York. I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor. But the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals. And, you know, New York and L.A., look at L.A. L.A., those people weren't from L.A. They weren't from California, most of those people, many of those people. And, yeah, that's a focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
That's it. Thank you.
If you don't mind,
Yes.
I'm going to exercise my role,
Yes.
if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president and his team, and then we actually have to start the meeting to address some of these big issues. So,
Thank you.
messy-
Thank you.
All of this happened within just the first few hours of day one. Trump rambling about Russia being kicked out of the G8, blaming Trudeau, who wasn't even prime minister at the time, claiming blue states are failing, and of course, insisting the Ukraine war wouldn't have happened if he were president. The media may have asked the question, but leave it to Donald to make it all about himself. Now he's gone. And the remaining G6 leaders, they'll finally get to talk trade without the man-child in the room. But even if he had stayed, would anything meaningful have come out of it? Even if a deal was reached, like the one the UK signed, how long before Donald flipped and tore it up? That's why I think his absence is actually a win. Let leaders like Mark Carney step up and forge real partnerships with the UK, France, Europe, and beyond. Because when grown-ups are at the table, it's not about winning, it's about respect. Something Trump never understood. The meetings will continue, and now that the circus has left, there's a real chance the adults can get something done. If you agree, or even if you don't, drop a comment. And if you want to support the channel, hit like and subscribe. That's it for now. Check out the other videos on your screen, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.